There it is. All right, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to talk about the topic of legacy giving for those that decided to stay in this room. It's kind of a heavy topic, especially for right after lunch, but a very important topic nonetheless. Legacy giving, otherwise called plan giving. I think this is an important topic, again, for ministers when you think about your congregation, church board members, when you think about the congregation, your donors, and anybody, that has assets and resources. If you think about giving, you think about a new convert, it usually takes them some time to grasp the principle of tithing. And then it usually takes them some more time to grasp the principle of offering. When we talk about legacy giving, we're moving past the tithing and the offering, and now we're talking about this idea of using your resources to leave an impact past death. And so it's one of these things that I think a lot of pastors and church board members, we often get so fixated on the today. We think about the giving next Sunday, the giving next month, that often we're not thinking about what could that look like years down the road as people pass away. And the other thing I've learned is that you can't look at your congregation and assess whether they have assets or not just based on appearance. You've all heard stories of that person in the church that didn't look like they had much, and much to your surprise, they had a lot. And pastors, the other thing I'll challenge you with too is I've talked to a lot of these planned giving, legacy giving donors, and a lot of times they're looking to see how you're managing the church's finances to see if they're willing to gift you money or resources or assets. So it is imperative that you are checking all these boxes so that these people can see, and they need to be educated on the different ways that they can give. Today, because this is such a heavy subject, I want to just focus on what I would consider 3 entry-level plan giving or legacy giving resources. Before I get to that, if you advance it a couple slides, I want to give you some context on AG's financial, or what we call the AG Foundation. You can go ahead and advance it to one more. The Assemblies of God Foundation has been around for decades. As of end of last year, the foundation has bequested over $500 million to various ministries and churches across our fellowship. So it's quite a resource, whether that's through people leaving assets through wills, a very simple way to do that, or going all the way through donor-advised funds, gift annuities, charitable remainder trusts, all these fancy things. But over all these decades, it's quite amazing that people have that spirit of generosity even beyond their living years. So the next slide is common estate planning documents. This is where I'm going to start off at a very basic level based on some of the situations that we run into quite frequently. And again, like I said earlier, I am not an attorney. So anything I'm going to give you today, I need you to take it and then research it and see how it applies to you specifically, and if it's a good fit or what actions you need to take. I just want to give you some general broad education. So common estate planning documents, the next slide. Probably the easiest and the cheapest estate planning tool is what we call a beneficiary designation. This one, you think about your retirement account, your life insurance, your bank account, any of these assets you have, you can have the ability of assigning beneficiaries. When you designate beneficiaries and you die, your assets with those beneficiary designations go straight to the intended beneficiaries. Anything that does not have a beneficiary, anybody know where it goes? Probate. And then the courts will decide who gets it. So beneficiary designation, I think, is often overlooked because it's free. It's the easiest way. In fact, I just saw not too long ago, I think it was last year here in New York, they passed the ability for you to do a transfer on death on your real estate. We have that in Missouri. If you think about it, one of the largest probatable assets that you'll have when you die is probably your home. In certain states, in Missouri, for example, I was able to put a beneficiary deed on my house. so that when my wife and I die, it can go straight to the children without having to go to probate. So if you're in the state of New York, I think they just passed that last year, but again, check it out and see if that's an option. I think it cost me in Missouri, I think it was about $75 to file that with the county clerk's office. To me, it's well worth not having that as a probatable asset and getting that straight to the intended beneficiaries. So second estate planning tool is your wills. You've probably heard people talk to you about wills. Everybody needs to have a will. A will doesn't really have anything to do with how much money you have or how little you have. If you have children, you need to have a will. You need to appoint guardianship for those children while they're minors, and I'd prefer it you choose those guardians and not a court choose those guardians. So everybody needs to have a will. In a will, you can also specify and make designations on any of your assets that don't have beneficiaries or transfers on death. AG Financial provides wills. We don't do any of those will clinics like we used to do back in the old days, but we can give you a will packet. Our stipulation is that if you do a will with us, that you leave at least 10% to any ministry of your choice. Any more, you can go online, LegalZoom, or any of these places if you have just basic needs, and you can do these for $50, $100 for a basic will. Once you get into more complexities, then you're going to get into more costs. So at the very least, beneficiary designations and wills. Those are two steps that, and mind you, be sure these two instruments that you keep them up to date. I still run into people on the retirement side that set up a retirement account 30 years ago and never updated their beneficiaries, even once they had kids, grandkids. They never updated addresses or anything, and they just never even thought about it. And post-death, it becomes difficult to track these people down. So usually if you can find one beneficiary, you can find the others. But if you can't find even one, it becomes difficult. So beneficiary designation wills, if we go on to the next slide, this is the next level up. This is getting to a level where you may or may not need this. Not everybody needs a trust. I hear a lot of attorneys say everybody needs a trust. Not everybody does need a trust. A lot of it, again, depends on your situation. One situation that I ran into that I thought a trust did make sense was a widow and a widower that married, but they had children from their original marriages, and they wanted to be sure whatever assets they brought into that second marriage would be for their children respectively. So those types of instruments, I think a trust can make a lot of sense. We have people sometimes with special needs children. A trust can be a great tool to be sure that that special needs child is taken care of. But again, not everybody needs a trust, especially if you have beneficiaries and you have will. So you want to be careful, because when you get into the trust side, now you're talking a few $1,000s that an attorney will oftentimes charge you for that instrument. But I have on here, you have basically a living trust or a testamentary trust. Living trust is something you set up now and it's live now. And then you have a testamentary trust, which is set up at your death. A testamentary trust is typically, which goes into the second point, irrevocable versus what we call revocable. A revocable trust you can change at any time. It gives you flexibility. An irrevocable trust, once you set it up, it's locked in. Irrevocable trust is what the AG Foundation works with clients on. But I have to tell you, an irrevocable trust requires a lot of thinking, planning, and strategy, and communication with your family. Please, if you're doing irrevocable giving and trust with your assets, typically for charitable purposes, be sure your kids know about it. We see this all the time where parents pass and they had this heart for generosity, a heart for ministry, and they bequested X amount of their estate to go to this church or to this place, and the kids just said, we never knew about that. We don't think that they really truly wanted to do that. It can become quite contentious, and we want to try to avoid that. The more you communicate, the better. But irrevocable and revocable. Irrevocable, because it's locked up, it has different advantages. For example, charitable irrevocable trust can give you tax deductions now in return for that gift or whatever that remainder is that goes to a ministry, which we'll talk about. And then the last one is power of attorney. It surprises me how many people don't think about power of attorney. I'm dealing with this with my 80-year-old parents right now. Husband and wives, just here's a good example. When you call AG Financial, let's say the husband has the 403B and the wife does not. The wife calls in and says, I want to check on my husband's 403B account. What's the balance? How is it invested? A retirement account is individually owned. It's not jointly owned. A financial institution, even AG Financial, I cannot give you information on your spouse's account. It's confidential. Okay, this is just an example of where power of attorneys come into play. When there's a power of attorney and that's on file, then you have the right, you've been granted the right to ask about those types of things. And there's different types of power of attorneys. There's medical, there's financial. So if you have elderly parents or know people, I think elderly is usually the time that really should be considered, is because if there's ever an incapacitation where they can't make decisions, that you want to appoint somebody who can make those decisions, again, whether medical or on the financial side. So power of attorneys are typically free. That's another tool, too, that even if by going online, we have the paperwork to do those. You can go online and usually download them. But that's a great tool that you need to be sure that you're thinking of as well. So let's go on to the next slide. These are the three strategies I just wanted to deal with here in the next 20 minutes that we have. I want to talk to you about a ministry impact fund, a generosity fund, and a charitable gift annuity. And again, there's a lot of different tools, so don't think these are the only three, but these are the three I chose to cover for today so that we can get a base level of understanding of what's available out there. So if you go to the next slide, let's talk about the Ministry Impact Fund. This is a tool specifically for churches or ministries to use. Have you ever had anybody in your church or ministry want to gift you stock? If you have not, my two questions for you is, do people in your church know that they can? And two, are you equipped to receive such a gift? So a ministry impact fund gives the church that ability. It's an account that the church sets up that can receive cash, but also appreciated assets like stocks. Once it goes into the ministry impact fund for the church, that is sold and the cash becomes available for the ministry to use however you so choose. If that person that's sitting in your pews takes the stock, say it's me, say I'm the donor and I've got some stock, if I sell that stock to give you the cash, I have to pay capital gains on it. So you're going to get something, but you're not going to get as much as if I give you the stock and you as the church or ministry sell that stock, you don't have to pay capital gains. So there's more money available to you if you allow for somebody to give you something other than cash, like a stock or land or those types of assets. So that's one that I see, depending on your geographical region, you may have people in your church that work for companies that give stock options or stock bonuses. These people, they want to pay tithe on that. You have people that want to be generous and give, but they just never equated that they could actually take some of that stock and give it directly to the ministry rather than sell it themselves and pay the capital gains. So with the Ministry Impact Fund, the church sets it up, and then you can make it aware, you can make your congregation aware that this is a new tool that you have because you're looking to accept gifts beyond just cash. You're thinking about the future and other ways that people can give. So we're going to go through this next slide. That's just an ad that we had. No, one more slide. There we go. This is an important statistic that it always fascinates me no matter how much I read it. 90% of America's wealth is in non-cash assets. I mean, really think about that. We get fixated on the cash because we need that, church. You need that now to run your ministry. There's no question about that. But 90% of all wealth is held in non-cash assets. How are you facilitating your donors the ability to give those non-cash assets to your ministry, to the cause? So that's what this Ministry Impact Fund is. Stock is just one example, but I think it's probably the most common one. Usually you see this happening with high levels of appreciation in the stock market, which is what we've seen the last several years. You get more and more people saying, hey, I've got this stock now that I want to give. Then when we go through the periods of downturn and recession, you start hearing it less often because typically those people want to hold on to that until it rebounds in value. So that's a Ministry Impact Fund. The second one I want to talk about is what we call our Generosity Fund. So if you advance the slide, and I didn't check to see if my QR codes work, but this is a QR code for the Ministry Impact Fund if you want some more information about that. And then if we advance it to the Generosity Fund, one more. So a Generosity Fund is what we call our online donor advised fund. A donor advised fund is the way I look at it is it's a personal foundation. So I set one of these up for my family not too long ago. We call it the Dana Generosity Fund. It was something that I wanted to be able to involve not only my spouse, which she's already involved in our giving, but my two 15-year-old kids. I wanted to, not only in addition to our tithe and offering, but I wanted to start building up a generosity fund so that collectively when we hear about these great missionaries or other charitable causes that out there and we wanted to give, we'd have these funds available to do this. So a generosity fund, you give money into it now, you get the tax deduction today. And then I can give to any charities at any point in the future. So maybe 3 years down the road, I hear about something and we have money that we want to give to it. But the nice thing is that I get that tax deduction now. Again, this is one of those tools where some people that get those year-end bonuses that they don't know exactly what they want to do with it, but they want to be generous with some of that money, but they don't want to be in a rush that they have to do it by December 31st. They don't know exactly what they want to do. They can fund a donor advised fund or a generosity fund, get that tax deduction, and then they have time to make those grants to whatever ministry or charitable organization that they want. The generosity fund is online, so you can put money in online and you can make the grants all online. We have other donor advised funds for stocks, land, businesses, other types of appreciated assets, but the generosity fund is just for cash. People that want to give through cash. So that's a nice tool. If you advance the slide, I keep forgetting to tell you to advance the slide. And then the last one is our charitable gift annuity. And advance it one more. Now, generally speaking, I don't like annuities. I don't like commercial annuities. I do like charitable gift annuities. There's many reasons why I don't like commercial annuities. One of them being a commercial annuity, when I give the money to the insurance company and they guarantee me a stream of income for my life or my life and my spouse's life, whatever's left over if we die, the insurance company keeps. That's just the nature of the risk that they're taking to promise you those payments. In a charitable gift annuity, somebody can give a sum of money and get a guaranteed stream of income, just like a commercial annuity, get a tax deduction up front, and then whatever's remaining can go to a ministry or charitable organization. So this is great for those people that are in, retirement years, generally over 70 years old or older, that are looking for income. They have an income need, but they also have that charitable intent. So a charitable gift annuity, some of you probably are familiar with the Salvation Army. They're well known for their gift annuities that they do. Well, the AG has gift annuity programs as well. And if you advance the slide, what I just want to draw, because I get this question quite a bit, is you'll see on that slide, I think it says age 70, 8.1%, and age 75, you get 7%. 85, you get 9.1%. Age 80, 8.1, and at age 90, 10.1. That's not an interest rate. I'll get people that after they see that, they'll call me and say, hey, this is paying me better than my CDs and all of this. I need to move all my money to a gift annuity. This is a payout rate. So it is made up of principal and interest. That's what an annuity is it's paying you some out of what you gave and some earnings, but they're guaranteeing that it's going to last for your lifetime or you and a spouse's lifetime. A gift annuity, much like a generosity fund, a donor advice fund, falls into that category of irrevocable. Once you put the money into those instruments and you take that as tax advantages, you can't change your mind later. You can't get disgruntled and say, hey, I put $50,000 in, I want that money back. It's gone. You've given it, you've received a tax deduction, and now whether it's the donor advised fund or the gift annuity, you're going to get the stream of income or the ability to gift out to the charities that you choose. So again, it takes some planning and some strategy, but when you're sitting here thinking about these different tools, number one, are you thinking for your church or ministry, what are we doing to educate our congregation, not just on present giving and tithing and offering, but also how to give of their other resources. You think about people in your church that have rental properties that maybe are getting to that age where being a landlord and getting that call at midnight that the water line busted and they need help and need fixing. They say, I don't want to deal with that anymore. They can gift those rental properties. They can put them into tools that sell them, again, save the capital gains, get streams of income for their life, their spouse's life, and in some cases, you can even set them up where you can give a gift of stream of income for up to 20 years to children or grandchildren, too. So there's ways just based on your prioritization of what's important to you, what the type of tool is that you need. So churches, what do you have set up? What are you doing to educate your donors? And then how are you connecting your donors to the knowledge that they need and the tools to do that? That's where we come in. You can always direct them to AG Financial, and we have, in our foundation, we have a team of skilled employees that can help them, and we can wear that hat for your church or your ministry and help them facilitate their giving and their resources. We had one not too long ago that had a business that they had started and run for decades, and they were wanting to sell the business, but they wanted to do so in a very tax-advantaged way, and they had a very strong heart for ministry, multiple ministries that they wanted to give money to. So whatever it is, we've had cattle, we've had sheriff badges collections, we've had antiques, we've had stamps, we've had airplanes. Probably if you have a rundown car that doesn't work anymore, that the church may not want to take that as a gift. Becomes more of a hassle than a gift. But think about those tools and resources and how we can help facilitate that. Again, my main thing is that I run across a lot of churches that just aren't aware that these things even exist for their congregation. And this, again, is just skimming the surface of what's available. So I wanted to go through that a little quick and have Rick come up and see if he wanted to address anything.
Help me. One of the main reasons to do the gift as a stock or piece is that if I cash it even within the retirement account and then take the money out, I am paying entire taxes on that. Versus if I pull it out at the price, there's no taxes, and the church doesn't have to pay taxes. So it's good for both the donor and the receiver to go through this process. That's important.
It gets more to the ministry in a tax advantage way for the donor. And I'll have ministries too that once they get that gift of stock, they'll have that inkling that they want to keep this stock. This one's going to run up. I'm going to make a lot of money on this. The whole idea of when a ministry receives a stock is you sell it. You liquidate it, you take the cash, and you use the cash for your ministry. It can go both ways, right? And so a lot of churches, when you start getting into this realm, if you don't already have a gifting policy at your church that kind of governs these types of things, like, for example, if we get a stock We liquidate this as soon as administratively feasible. We don't hold on to equities. You know, those are the types of things you want to be sure, because you may have that person in the congregation that says, I want to know what your gifting policy is. I want to know if I give you this, that this money is going to be used and you're not just going to hold on to it for some reason. We get, I just had last week in Houston at the Church Multiplication Network, had a church, a pastor at a church say they're getting people that want to gift crypto. Yeah. That was when it was running way up. Now I think they're wanting to hold on to it. But crypto's another appreciating asset. They also were trying to invest the church money into crypto, which I would tell you, as Raleigh said so eloquently, from a fiduciary standpoint, that's probably not a good use of church money. But again, it's another way, another form of appreciating an asset that somebody can gift.
Any questions on this? Because we won't take questions on this at the end of the Q&A, because you're here, they weren't. So anybody have a question on this legacy? Planned giving is probably preacher talk. Planned giving. Anybody here? Yeah.
Yes. So the example would be if you take money out of your retirement account and say, are you saying take that money and then put it into your trust that you have set up? Anything that comes out of that retirement account, no matter where it's going, is taxable, whether it's a 403B, an IRA, a 401k. So you take it out of those tax-advantaged accounts, the government is going to say you've got to pay taxes on that. Now, there is one exception with IRAs, traditional IRAs. If some of you are aware of this, and again, if you're not, think about how many people in your pews are over age 73, okay? At 73 years old, retirement accounts impose something called required minimum distributions. It's the government's way of saying, if you're not going to take this, we're going to make you take it so we can get taxes on it. Traditional IRAs, not 403Bs, a person in your pews can gift that money, that distribution from that IRA, directly to the church and not receive it themselves and not have to pay taxes on it. So it's called a qualified charitable distribution. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people that have IRAs, traditional IRAs that are in your pews, that do not know that they can do that. They have to take the money out anyway, but they could just direct that straight to the church and not have to report that on their taxes.
Last one, and then they're switching, so if you're wanting to go to the other one. So help me this, because I think it caught me off guard. I have money in my MBA. Yep. Been doing it for a long time. Done very good. Thank you for all your help. I now, without ever taking that out, can I transfer it into one of these irrevocable or these trusts and bypass reporting it?
No. So you can take it out and you can put it in an irrevocable trust. You're going to pay taxes along the way.
Because again, the bottom line is when you try to do something against the law to save taxes, you have to do. All right, great. Thank you, Dana. You're going to stay right here. Well, we're going to start in just a couple minutes. If you're wanting to switch, they'll start down there in 5 minutes.